All right, everyone. It seems like everyone only wants to discuss Bill Nye right now. Like we've got Trump's tax plan, we've got North Korea, we've got the French election, we got all this stuff happening in the world, and what's everyone talking about? Fucking Bill Nye at the moment. I'm gonna weigh in on this. I forced myself, by the way, to watch the entire sort of dance video, the music so-called from this sex spectrum. I think it's sex junk thing. I'll weigh in on that, but I'm going to do that last. You get to hear what I think about that. Let's consider the four faces of Bill Nye. Two of them are pretty good. One of them I'm kind of ambivalent about. It's an either or, sort of a double-edged sword. And then there's this new Bill Nye, which is insufferable, honestly. Now, as a 90s kid, of course I grew up watching Bill Nye. And Bill Nye the Science Guy is one of the greatest shows, right up there with like the Magic School Bus and Arthur and Ed, Edd and Eddy and some of this other stuff. You had Steve Irwin on TV, unfortunately he's dead. It was some good stuff, he's like, we're going to combine vinegar and baking soda and we're make a little volcano and here's the chemistry set, here's the experiment of the day, and this is how tadpoles form and stuff like that. It was kind of basic stuff, but I mean, when you're a kid, when you're growing up, it's just fascinating. It's like watching like the National Geographic sort of nature documentaries over time, or Nova and some of this stuff, or In Search of. So it was interesting material. It made learning fun. It's like you go to science class, it's all very dry and boring usually until at least, you get to high school and you can do like dissection or some of these other experiments, electrophoresis and things like that. That's kind of cool. Before that, it's sort of basic. The most fun thing that you do in science in elementary school is maybe you whip out the microscopes once or twice a year to look at like cells or something like that. And that's pretty fun. But I mean, it made that sort of stuff fun in the same sense that some of these shows that were on at the time, they don't really have them anymore. It's all reality TV now. Used to be educational, and the education was actually interesting. You absorbed it more readily. It was entertaining. It was fun. It was more hands-on. You could do it at home, and it was great. So that Bill Nye is legend. Not really a scientist, just literally a kid's like TV host, like a Mr. Rogers for science. But at the same time, very entertaining, certainly helped, a lot of people get into science, stay interested in science. I'm sure there are people that have like master's degrees, PhDs in the sciences. They got started watching Bill Nye. So that's a good thing for the world. Then there's Bill Nye, the Slayer of Creationists. And Bill Nye, the creationism slayer, is also pretty cool. Of course, I'm not a creationist. I believe in evolution completely, and I think that it's kind of crazy not to. The evidence on that is basically settled. I can look at fossils. I can look at things that are hands-on. I don't need to do guesswork about what could happen if CO2 reaches some level or something, the climate science sort of stuff. It's all very hands-on again, paleontology and so forth. You can see transitional fossils. They do exist. Within the realm of anthropology, we have hominid remains. We can watch culture and language evolve too. It's interesting stuff. And when he's debating Ken Ham or somebody on Twitter that's talking about the world being 6,000 years old, I just imagine he probably beats off after doing this. That's a cool side of Bill Nye. Then you've got climate change Bill Nye. And a lot of people here probably think, well, Styx must hate this Bill Nye. No, not really, because he himself is not technically a scientist. He's got a bachelor degree. He's just going based on what actual scientists are saying. And whether for political reasons or not, they do consider the science on climate change settled. I happen to disagree with their general assessment. I think that there are ways nature can take care of the issue, number one. And I think number two, and here's what he needs to tell his fans, we're already doomed if the climate scientists are correct anyway, whether man-made or nature-made. If their prediction regarding the point of no return of atmospheric CO2 and of surface temperature, if those predictions are correct, we will spiral out of control and this world will become a lot less inhabitable. And that's inevitable. It's irreversible, climate change in that sense. If that is the case, and if he's going to go by consensus, the consensus is this is also true, then we're doomed. And so he should come out and tell his fans, oh, sorry, my generation already destroyed the world. Yeah, everything's going to flood. The world will desertify. You're screwed. Yeah, a couple hundred years from now, humans won't be around. If you're going to go by that and limit yourself and not imagine scenarios in which nature takes care of the problem. Like, increased plant growth because you've got, the ice melts, you've got more precipitation, more wet weather in many cases. You've got more CO2, much more conducive to plant life. You also have higher humidity in the atmosphere blocking out potentially some sun and thus some energy from reaching the surface of the Earth. Yeah, you could make an educated guess that that will actually cool the Earth back down and lead to another ice age or something. Maybe the people in the 70s were right. But that, Bill Nye, I can deal with it. I just come to different conclusions regarding climate change. And I do admit, climate change is real. I just don't think the science is quite settled on it being predominantly man-made. I'm ambivalent about it, though, because if they're right, we're doomed anyway, and if they're wrong, then it doesn't matter. So there's nothing I can do about it, personally. I can make my biochar, put some carbon into my garden. That's okay. But unless you're insinuating that we're going to get rid of all world industry and all go carbon negative and turn every factory into nothing more than a charcoal processing plant or a CO2 injection site, we're already screwed. So, leave that alone. Then you've got this fourth stage of Bill Nye. Fourth stage Bill Nye thinks it's a good idea to get Rachel Bloom on there to sing very, very badly and dance very, very badly about fleshlights and anal sex and things like that. Yeah. Take a look. Link in the description to what could be very well one of the worst songs ever made. I'm assuming it was supposed to be informative and empowering for people who are like, they question their sexuality or something. I don't know, though. I think if I was questioning my sexuality and I saw this, I'd be so freaked out that I'd sign myself into a monastery or something like that, or go to a nunnery or something if I was a female. There are like 5,000 genders, though, according to Tumblr, so whatever. Also, why is Bill Nye not elucidating on the fact that your gender is the result of you are XX or XY, you are female or male? Now, I don't care. I should probably say this. I don't care how people choose to express themselves. I don't give a fuck who you're screwing, what clothes you wear, what you feel inside mentally or spiritually is, if you got a spirit animal you identify as otherkin or whatever. None of that stuff freaks me out. I don't consider it degeneracy. I'm just like, people do what they friggin' want. And it doesn't affect me. I don't care. It's a non-issue. But it is still a little bit of science denial now, isn't it? To, sort of get on board with the hype train of the Tumblr gender series. Whatever new genders they concoct year to year and month to month and even day to day. Otherwise you trigger people and you're a bigot or something like that. Like if you don't let me identify as coffeekin, I'm like actually, inside I'm actually a coffee bean, and that's my sexual proclivity, like I'm a coffee sexual or something, then there's something wrong with you, you're bigoted. I don't believe in that stuff. I think people need to be a little bit less sensitive about such things. Just do what you want. You don't need anyone's permission to do it. And meanwhile, if they get freaked out by it, that's them. That's their opinion. And you can't force them to change their opinion. And as for Bill Nye, apparently the sexual guy, the problem is this. This music video, the way it's poorly sung, poorly danced, and has poor lyrics and stuff, it really resembles more like a middle school sex ed theater production or something, now doesn't it? Something that's really, really low grade. It was very, very poorly made. Like the two drama students put it together with the, the sort of substitute teacher in a day. They sort of slapped together the lyrics and they're like, we're going to have a school PSA about sex education. Only they've added a lot of edgy material to it, sort of the more progressive gender and sexuality stuff to it. And so they think it's cool, even though it's still poorly produced. It's the same as you look at some like 50s or 60s sort of PSA about, Jimmy beating off or something like that. Oh yeah, Jimmy, it's okay. It felt good, didn't it? It's just totally creepy and really weird and poorly made and fucked up, honestly. It's just the same kind of thing. It's reefer madness for sexuality in the modern era 100 years later or something like that. This sort of attempt to foist so-called quasi-educational material on people, especially the younger generations, I don't see as degeneracy. I see it as a good way to make them go in the opposite direction because it's so cringy. Now, didn't it? When you heard the mad lectures in school, didn't you say, ha ha ha, those drugs are pretty funny stuff? Now look at all these screwed up hippies that were constantly smoking. And then when you get older, you realize that was mostly bullcrap anyway. A lot of people went in the other direction. Oh yeah, I'll try weed. Yeah, it must be pretty good. Everyone wants me to not use it. Meanwhile, a few people are saying how great it is. Yeah, I'll try a joint or something like that. By the way, if you're going to get onto the topic of settled science with regards to morality, which science shouldn't even really mingle with morality and with these sorts of things in the first place, just a bad idea. Look at eugenics or something. Okay, some people think some of that's a good idea, but we'll leave that alone too. You look and you see Bill Nye and all these people. If it was 50 years ago, wouldn't they be making like some dance video about how weed will fry your brain or something like that and how we're about to enter an ice age? Yeah, they would have. And it would have been considered settled science. And then Bill Nye would have come out and said, oh, well, I think people who deny that weed fries your brain should be thrown into prison or something like that. It's all, it's very funny, but it's not funny for the right reasons. This music video isn't funny because it's meant to be funny. It's meant to be informative, but it's funny because it's so cringy. This is the sort of thing that you get from all moralist movements. And let's face it, this has become a moralist movement. It's become a sort of social panic movement to think that everyone needs their own specific, unique gender, and anyone who disagrees with that is a virulent bigot. And so they produce this. They produce what could be the crappiest sort of dance-off music video ever envisioned by a group of human beings. And that's quite a feat. To have Bill Nye associated with it, the dude who back in the 90s just wanted to whip out his chemistry set and show you how an acid and a base interact, or throw a chunk of pure sodium metal into a cup of water so you can watch it whizzing around and making little bubbly sounds. That Bill Nye being associated with this sort of material, I think jars people, especially millennials, because people have a sort of nostalgia for the pre-9/11 era. It's a significant nostalgia, and it goes all the way back. There are people who like the Victorian clothing and music and stuff, all the way up through. You got the sort of 50s and then early like the swing era, big band or something. Then all the way up through sort of the hippie trippy 60s stuff, early like proto metal. And it's music, it's style, it's politics, it's culture. All that stuff is getting dug back out of its graves and modernized and slapped on the internet. It's given people so much friggin' nostalgia. I'm surprised how some people can even mentally cope with it. And then you get this. Yeah, that's why people have nostalgia for past eras, because of crap like this. And unfortunately, to have probably one of the biggest symbols of 90s nostalgia associated with it directly, it's just people have to shake their heads in awe, honestly. So I'm not going to call it degeneracy or anything like that. I'm going to call it, it's a fucking stupid music. I don't even know if you can class this, though, as music, to tell the truth. And then the DJ dressed as a seahorse. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That's about all. Peace out.